Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to our Heart video series. Thank you for checking out our video today about creating your own camp. If you're anything like me, you may have had some familiarity with educational environments or nonprofit programs, but camps were still sort of a mystery. We know that kids love them, parents seek them out, but how in the world can you start one? If this resonates with you at all, you are in the right place. I'm Christina Holvershorn, and I'm the Indianapolis Program Manager for Heart. That's me on the left in the sunglasses. Several years back, a colleague of mine reached out, and he said that he wanted to create a camp for kids focused specifically on climate change. His name is Jim Poyser, and he works for another organization called Earth Charter Indiana. Now, he's zealous and energetic, and he's taught me so much because we've become co-directors of a climate camp that now happens every summer. So it's a collaboration between Heart, Peace Learning Center, and Earth Charter Indiana. And because of so much demand, we now actually have two separate camps that run for 1 week each. Our first camp is for kids who are new or relatively new to the subject and to our community. The second week is called our All-Star Week for kids who've shown leadership and engagement in climate-related efforts throughout the rest of the year. Because camp fell so far outside of my wheel well, my learning curve has been steep. So my goal is to condense and convey some of these lessons to you. And I hope it builds your confidence and your skills so you can do this too. Because there truly is nothing like camp. I do want to add one caveat before we begin. There's no right way to do this. And so I certainly wouldn't pretend to be a universal expert. I'm speaking from my specific vantage point, and I'll talk about some of the pieces that have worked well for our camp, but please know that there are so many wonderful ways to do this kind of work that don't look anything like ours. So definitely think about how to add your own flavor given your own unique circumstances. So here's a quick overview of the topics that I found particularly relevant to cover. So we'll talk about how to plan activities, relationships, walking your walk, the theme and focus, as well as the location, help for your camp, and then some of the details. One of the first things I had to learn was to change my mindset. I'm so used to educational environments with prescriptive expectations, and I had to be willing to let that go. Kids are here at your camp voluntarily and rightfully expect adventures, fun, friendship, and memories. So the challenge is really to find a balance where your activities are just as fun as educational, just as adventurous as safe, and way more joyful than whatever else we do for the rest of the year. We build in as much outside time, plenty of games to use formally with the whole group as well as informally with smaller groups. We build schedules that we are willing to abandon if we need to reconnect or relax. So the main lesson here is to give yourself permission to create a camp that looks and feels and smells, to be honest, different than school. So to get you started, you can check out some of the first few activities in our comprehensive resource guides to give you some ideas about the kinds of things that we're talking about. When you do check out the comprehensive guide, and have I mentioned that it's free at teachheart.org? You've seen our agreements for peace. We take quite a bit of time to think through a set of agreements that we can all live with and that are going to help us ensure a good experience for everybody. Here are one of our year's agreements, written on the inside of a box, of course. And then many of the rest of the activities are intended to build connections and relationships. The relationships are what matter most to many of our kids. After camp last year, I was cleaning up and I saw this little note on the whiteboard. Somebody wrote, "Climate camp never ends." And I think about it a lot as a way to remind myself that the relationships and the work we do matters every day of the year. I will tell you a couple of the group's favorite activities. One game is called I Have a Question, and you simply stand in a circle, and your job is to ask a question of the person next to you. So one person is speaking at a time, and when you are asked a question, you can't laugh, pause, or answer a question. If you do, you step out. So the circle continues to shrink, the questions get super funny, and it's always a really good time. My campers will tell you I'm pretty competitive at this game. I always remind the group, to only ask questions that won't hurt another's feelings, and sometimes tell them, don't say anything you wouldn't say in front of your grandma. Another fun one is Big Wind Blows. We start almost every year with this activity. You may have been part of an activity similar to this, but basically one person stands in the middle of a circle and tells something that is true for them that you can't tell by looking, by using the phrase, big wind blows for anyone who rides a bike to school, or big wind blows for anyone who loves singing. Anyone else who that is true for has to run through the circle and find a new spot to stand. So it's a little bit reminiscent of musical chairs with no chairs. If you're the last person in the circle, you become the big wind. And this is a great way for kids to immediately find similarities with one another in a really easy, fun way. We also have hands-on ways to learn about the science. So we do things like climate change in a jar, calculating our carbon footprint for meals, anything you can do to make learning active, tangible, and distinct from what they might otherwise associate with school, i.e. worksheets, things like that, is going to be useful. So here are some examples of our kids sorting out the materials economy involved in making a shirt. And so these guys on the left are checking out where their shirts were made. They're noticing that they're all different shirts. And that helps explain why in the world we use shirts from thrift shops for our camp shirts. To the right, some of our kids are role-playing a city council meeting. Some are playing themselves as kids delivering testimony on why they want a climate resolution passed, and others are just really enjoying playing dubious council members, asking things like, I've heard the science isn't really that solid on climate change, giving our kids a chance to explain what they know and really flex their science and debate muscles. So these are really fun, they're really active, and kids get really into it. So hopefully you can see how we maintain goals for the kids to understand the basic science behind climate change, understanding how they can personally make a difference, and then how they can affect more serious civil change. So we make sure that there's room for laughter, movement, and creativity along the way. So relationships matter. Do you remember the first day of school? Remember how hard it was when you before you knew where you fit in? We have to be deliberate and purposeful to make sure we create an environment where kids connect and really open up to new friendships. What usually takes months, we expect to happen in less than a week. So we use a process called Tribes. And you can check out Tribes Learning Communities online. They've got tons of great resources. We start with a set of agreements that I mentioned, and then we do an activity that connects kids with like interests into smaller little communities. So we have them on a piece of paper answer 4 different questions. And often they're things like, what do you really geek out about? What makes you laugh? What's something you're really proud of about yourself? And they write or draw their responses. And then silently, they have to go around and find people that they think would make a good tribe. And we've got kids that are really good at including each other. That's really the part of it that's so much, so crucial for this. And so they, once they've kind of connected, they form these small groups or tribes, and then each tribe is also fitted with a counselor. And voila, we have a group of kids whose job it is to care for one another. They name their tribe, and that's often after an endangered animal or superhero, and they form really cohesive bonds that help the members feel comfortable and supported. Another serious bonus is that they help us keep track of each kid. Do you know how easy it is to lose a kid in the woods? It's much harder when there's another kid who's helping you look after each one. Joking aside, we simply do a roll call where each tribe counts their members, and a lot of them come up with really fun ways to do that. And then we simply make sure each tribe is represented, and the counselor confirms that everybody in their tribe is accounted for. So who are these counselors? Once you've been at it for a couple years, your counselors end up being the kids who've really found their place in your camp and who want to come back for a 3rd and 4th year. They're usually at least 2 years older than their tribe, and they're a nice mix of fun and responsible. If you work with kids much, you know what I mean. A kid who knows when to stop being too silly and to take things seriously, but also is fun and can be lighthearted. So they also really appreciate clear training and guidelines. The first year that I actually wrote down exactly what we need from the counselors and spent several hours training them, doing role plays and practicing how to take on that counseling role, things dramatically improved with the ways that the counselors were being used. So don't be afraid to really spell out what you need. And I found that people, especially counselors, youth counselors, really appreciate it. And lastly, make as much room as possible for youth voice and choice in everything you do. If you have optional activities, like would you like to go for a hike or do a guided meditation, eat lunch now or after the hike, etc., it will help you, and kids will be very clear about what they want. We all like to have some say and some autonomy, so the more responsive to kids' interests and desires we can be, the happier our campers will stay. We also involve youth as we plan out our master schedule for the camp at large, so their input is really, really useful. So walking your walk is an essential part of all of humane education, and the walk of your camp certainly depends on the theme or the kind of camp you choose. So for us, our theme is climate change. So the carbon footprint of our food is super important. We serve all vegan food at our camp, and much of it is actually sourced from a local or urban garden. So the carbon footprint of our food is something we can really think about and ultimately celebrate. We also really try to keep things simple. So each kid brings their own water bottle that's reusable. And it might sound simple, but for many kids, it's one of the first times they realize how simple and reasonable behaving in sustainable ways can be. So understanding sort of systemic ways of existing that could help reduce our waste, for example. We purchase bulk quantities of used shirts from a thrift store and then just have our camp's logo and information and motto printed on those shirts. So they too become a learning tool about consumption and the materials economy. And then we help connect parents as well to try to help carpooling efforts for drop off and pickup. And then we have some days where we walk a whole lot. We used to have a biking day, but as our numbers grew, we decided really for safety reasons, walking in public transit was a better option for us. And then we teach our campers that it's all of our responsibility to care for our surroundings, planet included. So we do our own dishes, sweep the floor, and all those things as a microcosmic way to not only get things done, but to really demonstrate the ethic of caring for our environment. So you can see here, this is our location, Peace Learning Center inside Eagle Creek. And for our theme, I absolutely credit my co-director, Jim, in helping us refine the theme of our camp. So as a humane educator myself, I tend to have a comprehensive focus. And to be honest, if I were to have started a humane education camp broadly, I don't think it would have been as successful. Having a specific topic actually helps more people know exactly what they're going to get into and pulls them in. I love being able to bring in kids who already have an interest in the environment and then round out their understanding with a broader view of animals and social justice topics. So don't be afraid to tailor this camp to a particular community need or issue. And we're really lucky to be able to use a beautiful facility inside a city park. This is because of a partnership we have with a local nonprofit, Peace Learning Center. And we spend time, though, in many other nonprofit buildings and farms around the city. And I've learned that it just never hurts to ask if we can visit, if we can stay for a while, because the worst someone can say is no. And although we have a home base, several of the days of the camp are out and about. So adding variety keeps things interesting for the kids. So don't be afraid to mix it up. The most important thing is not to confuse parents too much. So if you can secure a place to have drop off and pick up in a relatively stable place, at least one place in the same day, it really helps. And ideally, that place would also have restrooms and a place to fill up your water bottles. Local nonprofits have been so kind to us, and they would likely be kind to you as well. So one thing that I underestimated getting into this work was the interest and willingness of various people in the community to help. So if you're running a camp in the summer, there's often a lot of high school and college students ready and willing to be part of it. We've relied pretty heavily on both of those groups. And there's a lot of organizations that love to interact with children, but might not know how to connect with youth. So for us, organizations like the Nature Conservancy and even large sports arenas that have sustainability initiatives, we're thrilled to allow us to come and check out their work and ask questions. People doing interesting work in your community deserve to be celebrated, and they're usually really excited to participate. If you're affiliated with some sort of nonprofit, partnering with universities can be wonderful because they can sometimes pay their interns or offer credits to the students and then match you with people who are a wonderful fit. We do background checks on everybody involved in the camp so we know exactly who we're dealing with and make sure that they are appropriate for working with children. And we've been really lucky to have incredible people supporting our camps. So create a fun, inviting atmosphere, and you're going to continue to draw in amazing kids and adults. Last but not least, there are definitely a few details that you're going to want to consider. If you have a kid of your own, you've probably signed a whole lot of waivers in your life. So this is par for the course for many activities, but it is important to create language to make sure your organization and you personally are not likely to be sued if anything goes wrong. There are plenty of templates out there, but it's definitely worth your time to consider. Another important consideration is insurance. If you already work with a nonprofit, you're probably already carrying insurance, but you can always augment it to make sure that whatever activities you're doing are also covered. Insurance companies are really used to this, so working with your insurance company is worth it. One of our biggest logistical issues are registration. We've used lots of different types of format, Constant Contact, Google Forms, things like that. And the most important thing is to have a portal where parents can fill out that essential information and then have a place to house it. So usually we have it all filled out and then export it to a really large Excel sheet. So we have all the phone numbers, allergies, emergency contacts, everything in one place. Pay really special attention to health issues and medication and even behavioral issues. And then talk to parents about it to make sure you really know what it is they're conveying on those forms, whether it's how to use an EpiPen or what foods might be really dangerous to certain kids. This part is really important and worth some time to consider to ensure everybody's well-being. We also make sure that we have first aid kits handy, and it's important to keep that information with you at all times. So if you go for a hike, you might think, oh, I probably don't need this, but you don't want to be out and about and not have a phone number if you really need it. And then it also doesn't hurt to make sure that someone in your group is CPR certified. Making sure that all kids are wearing sunscreen and, if appropriate, insect repellent, it can really help keep everybody comfortable. We just ask parents to pack a backpack for each kid with a water bottle, sunscreen, and bug repellent so that each kid is responsible for their own stuff and they have what they need. Now, somebody always will forget it, so it's wise to have a little bit of extra, but that's worked pretty well for us. So hopefully this is helping you lean into the idea of starting and running a camp. I recommend start small and learn as you go. I want to end by pointing out that many of the kids that you've seen pictures of who've been part of our camps, they've ended up taking what they've learned and the passion that they developed and done some amazing things. They've passed several local resolutions. They've changed school policy and purchasing decisions at district levels. They've addressed thousands through speaking and educational campaigns, and that's really just to get started. So camp, ultimately for us, has served as a springboard to connect kids with opportunities for meaningful actions that they are taking to defend our Earth. If you ask me, the more camps, the better. We can connect kids with these topics and support them as they take meaningful action. I hope that you've gotten something useful from our time together today. We love offering our support. This is my email, and don't forget to check out Heart's library of resources. We've got tons of great stuff out there, free for the taking. And please be in touch with some amazing stories of how your camp is helping make our world a kinder and more compassionate place. Thanks so much.